إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Inshallah, the next hero from the heroes of Islam course, inshallah, that we wish to cover is Sheikh Abdullah Azzam. And like the previous hero that we covered, he is somebody who has lived within our lifetimes of many of us here. And inshallah, and he's someone who's very famous amongst the mujahideen of the world, and he is also very well known amongst the powers that be and also amongst the Arabs generally speaking. His importance, just to cover that from the Muslim viewpoint, was that as Osama bin Laden, he said the Sheikh Abdullah Azzam was not an individual but an entire nation by himself. And the Muslim nation has proven themselves incapable of giving birth to a man like him after he was killed. And as for those who know, he was killed in 1989, inshallah we'll cover that today. And also, like I said to you, wherever you go in the world, in the last 10, 20 years, any place in the world where you've gone, whether it's been jihad with sincere brothers who are willing to sacrifice, you will see that amongst the people they respect the most was this man. And you'd go to certain places and all you'd hear, in the kitchens was the voice of this man. And that's how in fact some people got to know that people loved him so much, even if they didn't know him from before that. And a lot of the source what I'm saying to you has come from a magazine that he himself established, and it's called Al Jihad, which used to tell the news of the affairs of the Mujahideen. And the issue that I've taken this from is the issue of January 1990, which is a month roughly after he passed away. And in there I found a number of quotes, a number of scholars, a number of people saying, telling us what kind of a man he was. But I didn't find anything more concise to sum him up than this statement of this Afghan Mujahid that was in there. He said that كنا نشم منك يا شيخ المجاهدين رائحة السلف الصالح, that we used to smell from you, O Sheikh of the Mujahideen, the smell of the Salaf, the righteous Salaf. And we could feel in you the zuhd of Hassan al-Basri, and the fiqh of Abi Hanifa wa Thawri, and the jihad of Ibn al-Mubarak, and the bravery of Ibn Taymiyyah. And we used to see in your brightened face, the vision of Ibn Badis, who is an Algerian hero, and Hassan al-Banna, wa Sayyid Qutb, wal Mawdudi, and he numbered a few other people as well. All of these are heroes who have left their mark upon Islamic history, upon whom we respect. And the key thing that we have to stress here, and inshallah you'll see that he was a sheikh, he was a recognized scholar. And at the same time he did what very few, very, very few, a handful of, people have done in the last 30, 40 years, and that is, he went out and he sacrificed all that he could for the deen. And even from the kuffar viewpoint, even though they hate him, okay, and if you look at the top analysts from the kuffar, how much they hate him, right? They recognize his importance. Time magazine said that he was responsible for reviving jihad in the 20th century. Some of the other analysts that have been quoted here have said that he is Bin Laden's spiritual mentor. They have said that he is the Muslim leader who's been most responsible for expanding the jihad into a full-blown international holy war without borders. It was this man, it was his thought, it was his ideology that really inspired the people. Another of the kuffar analysts, he said that he is the ideological godfather and global recruiter par excellence of Muslims drawn to the Afghan jihad. And we know the Afghan jihad, that was a school that spread the fire around the world. So inshallah, let's cover his history and talk about some of the other important aspects from his life. Abdullah Azzam, he was born in 1941 in Palestine, in the province of Jenin, and I've heard you've heard of Jenin recently. That's where all the atrocities and massacres occurred. And he was brought up in a house that loved Islam, so he was taught adab. His father was one of the known mujahid of the area at that time, so he had that tarbiyah right from the beginning. As a young child, he showed himself to be quite intelligent, and he was known to be, at a young age, he decided that he's quite adherent to the mosque. This is one of the things people have said about him, that when he was young, he loved to be with the mosque and spend as much time as he could there. And he started to distinguish himself early from an early age, and his teachers, they recognized his excellence in this. And in an early age, he joined Ikhwan al-Muslimin, the Muslim Brotherhood, the brothers that we talked about earlier. And like I said, since he was intelligent, that wherever he went, he would get distinctions. Okay, so even though he came from a very rundown, you could say, society in the economic sense, since he was intelligent, he was smart, he was able to show himself. After graduation, he became a teacher in a village in Jordan, and then in 1966 he joined the Sharia college in Damascus, where he obtained a BA degree in Sharia with distinction. Then in 1967, when the Jews, they captured the West Bank without resistance, i.e. the Muslims had fallen to such a level that they captured it without resistance, he decided to migrate to Jordan full time and participate in the jihad there. So this was the first jihad he did, and he participated with the Ikhwan al-Muslimin who were doing jihad from there against the Yahud in Palestine, obviously. And he participated in a number of battles. One of the battles there is called the Battle of Mashuru, in which 62 Yahud were killed. He was also honored to participate in the jihad that occurred on the 5th of January 1970. And at this time, despite him committing himself fully to jihad, he was living actually in very poor circumstances. His wife, he says to his wife later on that at this time we had 3 children, we were living in a room, and we didn't even have a kitchen. I mean, that's how poor his economic state was. But sacrifice was the key in his life, and these material things, it did not matter to him. And then after that, he went to Egypt, and he obtained a master's degree in Sharia from Al-Azhar. And in 1970, he became a lecturer at the age of 29 at the Jordanian University in Amman. And this was roughly the time when the jihad had come to a halt, because the PLO had been banned, had been forced out of Jordan. Then in 1971, he was awarded a scholarship from Azhar, and he obtained a PhD in Usul al-Fiqh, the principles of fiqh, the rulings of Islam, in 1973. So he was a recognized scholar. And it was there that he became acquainted with the family of Sayyid Qutb, who has been mentioned earlier today. And it's clear, if you listen to his cassettes, his video cassettes, his books, you'll see that he was inspired by a lot of people. And one of the people he was inspired about was the family of Sayyid Qutb. He often would quote them. And just one of the quotes, just to mention, he says about them was that he would take his resolution that at the end when just before he was being executed, and like the brother mentioned, the sister of Sayyid Qutb came to Sayyid Qutb and said to him that why don't you just say sorry? Why don't you do this so that so they will let you off? It's clear that your loss will be a great loss to the Muslim Ummah as a whole. And Sayyid Qutb, he made his famous stance, and he said that one of the things he said that he says, upon which thing shall I make my plea for, Ya Hamida? If it has to do with the work with the Lord of the worlds, then wallahi, I will not make any compromises whatsoever. But if it was to do with anything else but that, then I would have done so. And he said further that if my execution has been written for me, then no matter, there's nothing that can stop it happening. If it's not been written for me, then nothing will stop it anyway. And he would often say that what kind of iman, what kind of iman can make a man have a stance like this? Because at the end of the day, death is the ultimate reality. And it was during this time he continued to try to participate with the jihad in Palestine, but eventually he began to realize that the PLO as such, who were the majority of people who were trying to revive, trying to get back Palestine from the Yahud, they were people who were not serious. They were not people who were willing to really sacrifice. They were not really people upon the manhaj of the Salaf as-Salih. You know, they would spend the nights playing cards. They would listen to music, okay, and they would think that this is the way of the Mujahideen. No, this has never been the way of the Mujahideen. And you know, he would say that from the thousands of people in the settlements, you know, only a few people would offer salah in jama'ah. You know, while if it was a case of Mujahideen, all of them would do it, and those who wouldn't do it, as you know, they get punished. And he tried his best to reform these people, okay, but they wouldn't have it, until one of the people who was quite prominent amongst them, he said that this revolution has no religion behind it. A prominent person from PLO, and he said this was the last straw for him. He was then offered a post in King Abdullah Aziz University in Jeddah as a teacher, and he took it, and he began teaching in King Abdullah Aziz University in Jeddah. But at the same time, you know, it's quite clear from his writings that, you know, he's still very restless. He still wants to do more than this. He still sees that teaching, you know, is not the end-all be-all of an Islamic scholar. And he would often be quoted as saying that jihad and the rifle alone, no negotiations, no conferences, and no dialogue. This was the result. This was the conclusion that he had come towards. And it was here that he first met Osama bin Laden, and it was here that they say this is where he first, you know, began to speak and tell people about jihad and its importance. And this is where he first influenced the Sheikh Osama bin Laden. And you know, like I said earlier, really, if you look at every great person, every Muslim hero, you'll see that there have been people that have inspired them in one way or another. This has always been the case. You just have to look into their life to see who's inspired them and what they learned from it. And it was here in this time that he had the opportunity to meet some of the Afghan Mujahideen in the time of Hajj. And a delegation had come from Afghanistan to do Hajj, and they started to tell people about what's going on, the atrocities that are happening in Afghanistan, and how the people, you know, they want Islam, and, you know, come join us. And he immediately quit. You know, he quit as a lecturer in King Abdul Aziz University, and he joined the International Islamic University in Islamabad as a lecturer. You know, him being a man who's a recognized scholar, having distinctions, you know, it was not a problem for him to become a teacher at any Islamic university. And his aim to going to Islamabad was basically that he could come close to the jihad in Afghanistan and begin to know the leaders and begin to see whether are these people serious or not. You know, before I commit myself fully to these people, are these like another PLO people, or are these, you know, the people who are really from the Mujahideen, sincere towards Allah? And after a short time, he realized that these people were sincere, and he realized that there's a lot of fruit to be gained here. So he quit his post. He put forward his letter of resignation, and he quit his post as a lecturer in the university in Islamabad, and he began to devote himself fully to the Afghanistan jihad. And he would say that it was statements like, you know, it was statements like the statement of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that standing for an hour in the ranks of battle waged for the sake of Allah is better than standing in prayer for 60 years. You know, it was statements like that inspired him. So eventually he brought his family to Pakistan, and from Pakistan he moved. You know, this is an Arab scholar. He moved his family from Islamabad to Peshawar. You know, so this was not a man who sacrificed, you know, part-time. He was a fully committed man. And slowly he began to, you know, get to know the situation there, and he began to become more and more prominent amongst the Mujahideen there. And eventually, as the Mujahideen started coming in, he founded with his dear friend Osama bin Laden Baytul Ansar, okay, which is basically a bureau that was set up to assist the people who are coming from outside, the Mujahideen coming from outside, in different aspects. For example, training, okay, tarbiyah, coordination, projects, you know, different things, just so that when they come in, they want people, because you have to realize is that the Mujahideen, you know, they're a voluntary force. Okay, so a lot of them therefore don't have training, they don't know what they're going into. They need guidance, and you know, and he therefore, you know, he thought that this is what he needs to do. So he set up this project to facilitate the matter.